Hi there, this is John from Pino Comics.
This is the other John from Pino Comics.
And we just wanted to warn you before you tune into our quite excellent show that we may or may not use, what type of term would you use for the language, John?
Swearing with flair.
Swearing with flair.
Colorful language.
Colorful language.
Or just plain out, I don't know.
Gutter talk.
Gutter talk, there we go.
You've been warned. Listen in. Welcome back, Pino Comics listeners, to a very special episode. An episode 40 years in the making. Are you ready for what we're going to talk about today?
Nope.
I'm not even ready for it. We're going to talk about the biggest movie franchise of possibly all time. 40 years ago, May 25th, 1977, George Lucas presented to us Star Wars. That's right, it's the all Star Wars anniversary episode. John is so excited right now, he's sweating.
Yep.
He looks like Lobot with his headphones on. Every time I look at him, and just if I want him to turn
Blink.
I'm blinking a few times. So basically, 40 years of fandom, and we both are Star Wars fans. But I think the problem with Star Wars is that it's an abusive relationship. It's been an abusive relationship for a long time.
I've certainly abused it more than it's done to me.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about Star Wars. We're going to talk about the original movie, which is what is celebrating the 40th anniversary. But again, we're going to talk about...
Really? Just that one movie?
Well, Empire Strikes Back in another 3 years will be doing its 40th anniversary. When was the first time you saw Star Wars? Did you see Star Wars in the theaters?
Yes.
I did not see Star Wars in the theaters.
Twice.
Twice. Did you go on the same day?
No.
A lot of people do stuff like that. Where I remember a friend of mine.
I saw it the first time it came around.
Yep.
And then I saw it again when he re-released it with all the new footage and...
Oh, okay.
And
are you talking about the special editions?
Whatever you want to call
like
them.
20 years later.
The George Lucas editions.
Yeah.
Let's not call them the special editions.
So what was your where do you remember where you saw Star Wars?
Yep.
For you was it a revelation as it was to so many people?
I don't really remember.
No.
I remember going. I was young, very young, and that's about all I remember. Is that we saw it, and that was it.
Yeah.
I remember where we saw it.
Where'd you see it?
It was the Showcase Cinemas in East Hartford.
Yeah, that was the
which
big. That was
no
the big
longer.
one.
Yeah, it's gone now.
That was
back then. I think it was only 8. If I remember right.
Yeah.
8 theaters.
If you back in the day when I was a kid, if you wanted to go to a multiplex,
Yeah, that was the place. To
it
go.
was the East Hartford. I think I
Yeah.
saw Tron there.
Boy.
We went to go see Tron at the East Hartford multiplex
I
because
saw Star Trek 4 there.
The Voyage Home.
Yeah, with my father,
Really,
who refused to bring me to any kind of movies unless it had like.
John Wayne in it.
Yeah, kind of. No, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay.
He loved those movies.
He begrudgingly took you to Star Trek 4.
Yep,
Well, hey, that was a great movie.
it was.
So you saw
I think he fell asleep during.
you saw the original Star Wars in the theater. You saw it in East Hartford.
Yep.
And who? Here's a question, because I know who I identified with in my early years as a Star Wars fan. Were you a Luke or a Han guy?
Luke.
I was always a Han guy.
It was the exuberance and the so golden heroic things that he was doing. The Han thing didn't really hit me until I was much older.
I went reverse on it.
Yeah.
As a kid, Han was my hero. The Millennium Falcon, the whole, not necessarily the whole idea of him being a smuggler or possibly a murderous criminal at points. It was more along the lines of he was the cool guy.
Yeah.
You know, Princess
I get
Leia
it.
dug him.
Yeah.
And I never really paid much attention to Luke. Even when I was younger, even when I was 10, 12, 11, 13, watching the movies, Luke was. But as I got to be older, then I suddenly shifted over to Luke, because in the end, it is Luke's story.
Right.
And, it is the hero's journey. And it just, for whatever reason, I went the opposite way.
I don't know what it was for me. I mean, it was his outfit I thought was cooler than Han's. I mean, Han's is so laid back. It's a vest.
Han's wearing a vest and Luke's wearing jammies.
Yeah, and as a kid, you're like, it's kind of cool. He's got those cool boots on.
Yeah.
And then he's turning into the Jedi, and you think that's awesome. And Han's this guy with a giant 2-legged dog and a blaster. And I don't know. I didn't get him until I was much older.
And Harrison Ford just exuberates cool.
Yeah.
Back then he was, he just had that who cares attitude.
Yeah, he did.
He murders Greedo, you know.
which is one of the best scenes in the original
yeah.
film, and it's completely destroyed by Lucas's version. Which that's a weird thing to say. It's destroyed by the guy that created it.
Yeah.
By redoing it.
Yeah. A couple days ago was, at the time of recording, was May 4th.
Yeah. Did you ever go to Luke? Yeah, come see Lucas Works with me. I come to the Skywalker Ranch. I'll make you pork chop.
We're gonna CGI out one of my chins. A couple days ago, on May the 4th, there, people were putting up all these different things on Facebook because that's Star Wars Day.
Yeah, fuck that.
And one of the only thing I posted was, and I always felt this way, was you can go in and you could retro and change that Greedo shot first to make Han look like a good guy. But when those doors open on Bespin and Darth Vader was sitting there, Han shoots immediately.
Yep.
He doesn't.
It's also one of the really cool things in that movie.
Yeah.
Is just the quickness of.
He doesn't even.
Doesn't hesitate.
There's no hesitation. No. He's going to try to kill him.
Yep.
He doesn't know if he's there to say, "Hey, look, I got a truce. Hey, I brought you guys a blender. Hey, I'm Darth Vader, and I brought you guys some housewares." He could have been, because technically, technically he's Han's father-in-law.
Technically,
he could have been sitting there going, "So I hear you're banging my daughter." I mean, I know we didn't learn all of this until later on, but he might have just been there. There might,
Oh God, he's crying.
Lando's deal to secure the future of Bespin from the Empire might have been that he's, I'm gonna have your girlfriend's dad come and talk to you. But Han pulls that gun out and shoots immediately.
Doesn't even hesitate.
He's a rogue. He's supposed to be a rogue.
I hate C-3PO.
That's
Empire. So.
I hate C-3PO. I always have.
So you have.
He's an annoying. He's the annoying prick of robot characters. And in all honesty, it makes me feel good to hear that Anthony Daniels is supposedly a pretty shitty person.
He
was supposedly always mean to Kenny Baker, and
apparently was mean to him right up to
the end,
right through to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, after he died, he was like, I think he said something along the lines of, "Oh God, what are they gonna do? Bury him in a
trash bin." He's basically in a trash bin on
I wasn't even go that big, but a flower pot. But
yeah. I never liked that character.
He's just mean. I don't know.
I understand the point of his character.
Brexit.
I understand the point of he's all effed up over Brexit. I understand the point of his character is that R2-D2 and C-3PO are basically the audience because we're following the story through them.
Yeah, that's true.
But R2-D2 is so much cooler than C-3PO.
Oh, and I hated him as a kid.
You didn't like R2?
I did not like R2.
Really?
Yeah, I thought he was annoying.
R2 is so not annoying.
I don't think he's annoying now, but as a kid I was annoyed by him. Like BB-88 or whatever the hell his name is.
BB-8?
Whatever.
I like BB-8.
The ball.
He is a ball.
The ball bot. That thing annoys the hell out of me.
Nah, see, I like him.
I don't.
Do you like Chopper on Rebels?
I'm less annoyed by Chopper than I am most of the other.
So would you have been happier if R5-D4 didn't explode when they were trying to buy the Jawas? Let's get to the Jawas. The Jawas are basically
awesome.
The Jawas are basically the used car salesmen.
Yeah, they are.
And they're trying to get away with shit because they knew that thing had a bad motivator. You can't understand. There's no subtitles, but I've got Luke, blue milk. Owen, blue milk.
Aunt Beru, the most annoying character in the Star Wars universe.
You know what's very interesting about that is that was filmed in Tunisia,
Yep.
and that actual set is still there.
Yeah.
You can go there and drink blue milk and maybe take a ride to Tashi Station. But that set is still standing.
Visit all the characters that never appeared in the movie.
you can go out and you can see Biggs Darklighter and walk along that giant skeleton that they never showed. That was always I remember the picture books as a kid.
Yep.
Like the Star Wars picture book I remember my friend had the Star Wars picture book and it had that scene and as a kid you don't understand cut scenes.
Right.
I've seen Star Wars like 10 times and I've never seen a dinosaur.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I was a kid too, we saw a film version of it in school, like in our class.
Right.
And the old reel to reel comes out.
Oh, yeah.
I think the
Rainy day, you can't go on recess.
Something like
so
that.
We're gonna watch Star Wars.
That's the funny thing too. Is not only did I see Star Wars again, on film, I heard it from the audio version. They had a tape audio version.
Oh, I had those as a kid.
Well,
I had those
in school. So, but anyway, the video version or the film version had that cutscene that you didn't see except in those books like that,
Right.
where Luke is looking up in the sky with his binoculars and seeing the space battle.
He sees the
So this version of it had like those first 3 minutes or whatever, 2 minutes of him watching this thing before his aunt and uncle call him in for the night.
If you remember back in the day in the 80s and 90s when ABC or NBC would have like the movie of the week,
and they had
they
extra
always
scenes
would have
too,
extra
yeah.
scenes. I remember particularly, and it's a dumb movie to remember this, Bob, but was Jaws 2. Jaws 2, there's a scene at the end where the kids are on the boat and they're going to get killed by the shark, and the helicopter pilot comes down with the those flotillas.
Oh, the shark gets up and
In the regular movie, he gets pulled under, but that's all you see.
Right.
In the ABC Sunday night movie version, you see the shark killing him and breaking through the glass.
Yeah.
And they did that for a lot of things. And I found out later as I got older, reading about stuff, is that they would film those for those. Like,
Yeah.
they would know that they were never going to use it in the theatrical release.
it was used for basically filling time.
Yes. Yeah.
Is what it was.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you remember, too, the other thing was they would take a movie, like on ABC Sunday Night Movie, that was 2 hours long and make it last from 8 to 11.
Oh, yeah.
you
It
know?
was huge.
Yeah.
Oh, the Ten Commandments.
Multiple nights
What's that, a
sometimes.
4-hour movie.
Yeah.
You know? It took me years to see the end of that movie because I
Kept falling
I
asleep.
kept falling asleep or my parents would put me to bed.
No, can't watch Charlton Heston anymore.
No more Charlton Heston. Just go buy a gun.
No more Bible studies for you, son.
So the first Star Wars, otherwise known as A New Hope, which wasn't originally in there,
No.
apparently it was added
just
years
Star
later.
Wars,
Star
yeah.
Wars.
It was actually in the script in the crawl, but it wasn't on the title of the movie.
Okay.
So like when the crawl comes across, it's Star Wars: A New Hope. At least that's what I remember. But like I said, I could be wrong.
Who's your favorite character in the movie? Straight up, like whether it's Luke or anybody else.
Wedge.
Wedge.
No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say Wedge is
General
truly,
Dodonna.
General Dodonna. Wedge is truly the unsung hero of the Star Wars universe.
No,
I don't want to get into that, but this guy blew up 2 fucking Death Stars,
Right.
you know, and you know everybody complains at the end of Star Wars that Chewbacca didn't get a medal. Where was fucking Wedge?
Right? Where
You
the
know?
hell was Wedge? He
Hey,
was there.
this guy deserves a medal too.
No, actually, my absolute favorite after all these years of seeing it. What's this?
Oh, we got. Who do we have? We have Peanut Gallery. Who do we have?
Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks. Wrong movie.
Wrong movie. when we do the 40th anniversary of the prequels,
Oh, God.
in about
that.
30 years, we'll
Imagine doing the 40th anniversary of Speed 2.
Oh Jesus! So, who is your favorite character?
I would say, in retrospect, and it's not just the actor, but it is.
I know who you're gonna say.
Yeah, that's
Grand Moff
it's
Tarkin.
Tarkin. The few lines he gets in this movie
yeah.
are just so perfect, and he emanates more menace than Vader
Yeah,
does.
yeah. Vader. I mean, as a kid, I didn't think about it so much, but as you get older, you go, man, Vader listens to this guy.
Right.
He doesn't have to.
That's the other thing too. Is as you get older and you realize Vader is the big baddie, but here's a guy, this old guy.
Yeah.
That's just like Vader. Put him down.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what's he got over Vader? Or
Yeah. No.
I wish it was something that they'd explore more in one of the cartoons because that Rebel show, which I really do enjoy,
Yeah. Me too.
is doing a good job of filling in some of the gaps while creating its own little cast of characters at the same time, and that I'm enjoying. So
There was a Tarkin novel written a couple years ago.
yeah,
I think Timothy Zahn did it. The guy who did Heir to the Empire stuff afterwards. But
I haven't read one of the Star Trek. I'm gonna do that all
we don't have the library with us anymore. We did at the From the Hip studio.
the EU.
The EU.
Yeah, I haven't read any of those in quite a while because you get burned on them.
Nah, I never got into that stuff. I do enjoy Rebels. I do enjoy the comic books that they're doing now. But in all honesty, the novel, Poe Dameron,
Friend Zone Finn.
Friend Zone Finn. Now Finn, not to get in the Force Awakens, but that was a character that did nothing for me. I had no problem with the idea of a black stormtrooper because I'm not an idiot racist. I had, it just was that he just wasn't that great well written of a character. He didn't really have like a really impressive arc to me.
Well, they were trying to jam in so much.
Yes.
it was
Yeah.
it was hard to get.
But
it was one of the big failures of the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're getting off topic.
Yeah,
of
we're-
the original Star Wars.
The original Star Wars. I too like Grand Moff Tarkin. I like the fact that he rolls his R's when he talks.
Rolls.
He says, "They crush the Rebel Alliance." he's cool, and you know what? He blows up Alderaan just to show. He's like, you know what, Leia, you want to fuck with me? Here's your planet.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the story about Peter Cushing for that role?
No, but I'm imagining you're going to say that he probably hated doing it.
No, he loved it.
Okay.
He absolutely loved it. When he came in for costuming, apparently the boots that they gave him were too small, and he requested that he not wear the boots during the scenes, that they didn't show his feet.
He wore Converse.
No, he wore like bedroom slippers.
Really?
Yeah, and that's one of the big
That's
stories.
awesome.
I'd love to see a picture of him with slippers on his feet.
Really?
Yeah, because I guess they hurt his feet that bad where he didn't want to wear them as much as possible.
And they were probably like the only pair they could afford to make too.
Probably, yeah. Something happened in costuming where they measured his feet wrong.
Most movies nowadays, they would just go, okay, make another set of shoes.
Yeah.
And on Star Wars, the budget was threadbare, and they were trying to work with what they had, so they probably just went, if you don't wear these, you're wearing nothing.
I know you had a pretty decent budget, but I mean, yeah, they had a lot to spend it on.
A lot,
so-
but yeah, a decent budget, but
Yeah.
like it was
for the time, you think about it.
Yeah.
It had a pretty decent budget for an unknown.
completely unknown.
What's going to happen here? And
What is-
no
what
one
is-
believed in it, and that's why Lucas got so much money. Is he cut such a decent
Oh,
deal.
he bet on himself.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and the merchandising.
The merchandising is where he screwed them hard.
Yeah.
and you kind of got to give him credit for that.
There was a documentary on Amazon Prime, I think. I watched a couple months ago, and it was entirely about Star Wars figures and toys, kind of a history of.
Oh, yeah.
And it took place
Kenner.
and they talked about that. They talked about how nobody at the movie studio, they were giving away, you want to get paid a full director's salary, or we'll give you like 10 times less, but we'll give you 30% of the toys,
Right.
because it ain't never going to sell.
Right.
And now George Lucas owns Northern California.
I mean,
And good for him.
Look at the amount of money he made off ILM. I mean,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and I mean, look at the amount of money he made off of selling, a
Wow.
product that he had to, he just continued to make more
yeah.
money, more money. But yeah, this was I don't remember what it was called. It was a pretty good documentary where they talk about how, and that was one of the things they talked about was certain producers too, certain people involved. I think I could be wrong, but I think Alec Guinness even had like 2% of the original marketing for the toys and stuff like
It
that.
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they probably couldn't pay him what they wanted to.
And he certainly, I guess I
know.
went along with the Tarkin thing, thinking that Peter Cushing wouldn't be happy about it because he was, but
Yeah, Guinness.
Guinness was
yeah,
not.
Boy, you see some of the writings he made. Oh.
there was one in particular where he's talking to somebody about Harrison Ford,
Oh, yeah.
and he's a nice, good-looking chap, carpenter. Very rugged, but he's basically like not much of an actor. Day 6 on this sci-fi suckhole. that's paraphrasing, but he's saying these things
Yeah.
like in writings, and then I don't know, a couple months ago I saw an interview he did on like Johnny Carson or someone around that time, and it was right after it had kind of hit.
Yeah.
And he still wasn't even totally positive about it.
He had a particular description he gave to Star Wars. Now I can't remember what it was, and it had something that, basically, that strange little fantasy movie I did.
He did it 3 times too, so they definitely paid him well, or got him, involved enough in it.
I know. I heard a story that by the time Return of the Jedi came about, I mean, he was really reluctant to continue doing any kind of scenes.
Right.
But yeah, I guess throw the money at you, and even you're gonna say, yeah, I'll do it.
There's a complex character because he just lies to Luke left and right, man. Like, as a kid, you think of him as...
Well, the problem I have, too, is, that's, again, where you get into the prequel movies, and everything that you know and think of is undermined by a story that doesn't make really any sense compared to what you know and love.
Right.
Well, in the case of the Star Wars fans, know and love.
Right.
I can't put myself in the same realm as some of those people. So.
Well, no. I mean, you're a Star Wars fan, but you're not
I enjoy it for what it is, but
Me too.
I also believe many things about it in the negative end of it. So.
I totally do myself. I didn't count myself that way. I was never someone that would go, to Florida for one of these Star Wars conventions. I was a huge fan as a kid. I loved Star Wars, and it sounds cliche to say, but the prequels really pissed me off and left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah,
and for many years after that, I wasn't done, but I was just a casual Star Wars fan. You know what? I was glad when Disney came in and stepped in. I'm fine with them doing these new movies. I think it's smart on every end because when you have a product as popular as Star Wars, make some money off of it. What was that?
Something on a Tashi station.
Yeah, really. Luke. We just had a.
It was an Ugnaught.
I'm not even going to edit that out. We just had a very. You might catch that. We had what sounded like a ghost squeezing its way through like a windowsill or something.
Vuta, vuta, solo.
You even know the dialogue in Rhodian. See, that's what he was. He was a Rhodian. I know a lot of people that are major Star Wars fans. I can't be like the major Star Wars fans where everything to me is rosy. You know?
Yeah, it's not even that. It's just that they just can't accept the fact that it's just a movie.
Yes.
It's just a movie. And regardless, I was a Star Trek fan.
Yes.
Long before I was a Star Wars fan, and I will always remain a Star Trek fan, regardless of the garbage that's out there, and that includes generally 80 to 90% of the next generation stuff. Sorry, guys. I like the original series.
You're not a Data fan or any of that stuff?
Data was okay. He grew on me, but when you go back and watch those early episodes, they put these characters together, and they're such pathetic tropes.
Yeah.
You know.
I was never a huge Next Gen fan myself.
I don't know. I mean, it got better. The show got better, obviously, but it took quite a while.
7
3 years.
So 7 years total, right?
Well, yeah, but 3 years before it got good.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of fandom going.
This is the greatest thing since Kirk died.
You know, whatever.
So back to Star Wars.
Oh, okay, Star Wars.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we were talking about Star Wars.
It's the 40th anniversary of Star Wars.
It's last year was the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, and even Star Trek didn't care.
Right?
They released a movie in the middle of it and never hyped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
That's very sad.
That was very weird.
When's like the 30th anniversary of Battlestar Galactica? So we can talk about
Ooh. No, that's probably 40 years next year.
it. Is it pretty close to that?
78. Yeah, that only lasted 1 year.
I know, but it was good.
It was good. It was good.
Wow, that was hesitant.
Well, it's you know what it is for me as a kid. For me as a kid, you had the Battlestar Galactica, and then you had the Buck Rogers, and I was more of a Buck Rogers guy.
I liked them both. I preferred Battlestar, and watching it now again, it holds up a lot better.
I haven't seen the original in many years.
It still holds up. It's still a little hokey, and it's definitely 70s because you get some really weird costumes. But
Oh yeah.
and then no, they don't do too much of the music. The music is more. That's Buck Rogers.
Yeah,
You get a lot of the bad 70s.
Not just the music. Buck Rogers, the costumes look like
yeah.
look like Studio 54 puked all over a science fiction show. Like Buck Rogers is wearing
Princess Ardala.
Yeah, I used to love when they'd have the episodes where they were at a dignitary's dinner and Buck Rogers was wearing a fucking green spandex like some kind of green spandex
And
thing
a scarf.
and a scarf or something. It's like, oh Jesus. Beady beady beady. Hey Buck, you look fucking stupid. What was the doctor's name? What was the doctor's name on his chest?
Dr. Theopolis.
Dr. Theopolis, that's right. Beady beady beady. Hey Wilma, Buck's an idiot.
Boy, we are bouncing around. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's all right. That's
good.
all right. You
That's
can't-
good. All this. Well, hey, you got to look at it this way too. If it wasn't for Star Wars,
None of this stuff would exist,
A
or
lot of
at
it
least not at that time.
no, because the success of Star Wars pushed on so much creativity into Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica.
which got sued because people thought it was too close to Star Wars,
And-
and he won.
And Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers both had theatrical releases.
Yes, they
for
did.
their pilots
pilot,
or whatever.
yeah.
That would not have happened if it wasn't for Star Wars.
Nope, not at
Because
all.
that was a complete cash grab. I mean,
Right.
people were going, "Oh,
We
Buck-"
want science fiction.
Yeah, I mean,
Space opera.
And as a kid, I was a Star Wars fan. I had a lot of the toys, but I also had the Buck Rogers Starfighter. I had the Cylon Raider because that stuff was it
It looked good.
It looked good. It launched a love of the space opera or whatever you want to call it. Oh, Cylons! Cylons scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Well, that's I don't want to get into that, but that's a whole nother show. Honestly, the difference between the original and the new one.
I enjoyed the new one. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed the new one, but at the same time, it obviously was completely different because it had much more time to tell a story than the original one did. The original one was canceled after a year.
Yeah, and
You
the only reason it was canceled was was money.
Right.
It wasn't ratings. They claimed it was ratings.
It was
but
too expensive to
was
make.
Way too expensive. Yeah.
One of and I never remember if this was BSG the original series or if it was BSG 80. But my favorite episode of that show was the one where Starbuck and the Cylon crash land on the same planet, and Starbuck has to reprogram the Cylon to protect him.
That may be 80 because they did one episode to tell you what happened to Starbuck.
Okay.
But there's one in the original series. There's a similar situation.
Okay.
It's the storyline is very, very similar.
So I don't remember which one, but I loved that episode as a kid.
It's probably the 80 episode because it's the only one people care about.
Then it must have been that.
That show was bad. I mean, when you give Lauren Green a bad beard.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, weren't some of the characters invisible in that one? Like they had
they had invisibility belts.
belts. Yeah, fuck
They
that.
could turn their flying motorbikes invisible, and yeah.
All right, Star Wars fans, we're gonna get out of BSG 80 because that's not doing anybody any good.
Kent McCord.
Kent McCord, yeah, that's doing no one any good.
And Barry Van Dyke.
Yes, yeah. Jesus.
Kent McCord, who went on to be on Farscape, and another great science fiction show.
You know, I wanted to say this on our last episode. I did a review of a short spoiler-free review of Guardians of the Galaxy, but I did want to tell you this.
Uh-oh.
Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess you could say the not villains, but the people they run into in the beginning, they're called the Sovereign, and they're all gold. And the leader of the Sovereign is a female. Her right-hand man, as soon as he started talking, Ben Browder.
Oh, jeez.
They got Ben Browder into something, and I didn't see it in the credits. It's definitely him.
Did he slim down?
He looked fine. He didn't look, but I'm watching it, and he's painted all gold hair. But as soon as he talks, because that's one thing about Farscape and one thing about Ben Browder is I can't even do it. He's
got a very specific.
He has
way of
a
talking,
way specific voice. And I went, that's Ben. I can't wait to tell John. And I knew if I didn't tell you, I knew as soon as you see it, you'd go, that's Ben Browder.
Well, there's a good point. All right, so in the original Star Wars, is there an actor from that you've followed throughout his career or her career?
Well, I mean, obviously, you're going to immediately say Harrison Ford because he's the only one that really, in terms of overreaching success.
Yep.
I mean, Indiana Jones, he did everything.
Right.
I love Mark Hamill.
Yep.
Mark Hamill, a lot of people, not Star Wars fans necessarily, but a lot of lay people look at Mark Hamill and go, oh yeah, Luke Skywalker. They don't know he's the Joker in the animated series, which is very possibly, I don't want to say that, but to a lot of people, Luke is always going to be his iconic role.
True.
But he is an iconic Joker. So, I mean, he has two very big roles out of that. And then, he's done stuff with the 90 Flash. He's on the current Flash. He's
bounced around
He's
a bit.
bounced around a bit. I've always liked him. I'm trying to think of anybody in particular.
Corvette Summer, you really like that.
The big red one. Remember that with Lee Marvin? He was in that.
That was actually pretty good, though.
Yeah, no, it was. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I've picked up from that one.
Well, see, that's the thing, too. Like, because Mark Hamill didn't do as much as everybody else, anytime he did something, I would try and find it in particular.
The Guyver?
The Guyver, I watched that, which was...
Slipstream?
Slipstream was really good.
That was with Bill Paxton, right?
Was he in that?
I think that was Bill Paxton and Mark Hamill, yeah.
Huh. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Yeah.
And that was really unique and different. And I saw that on a list somewhere of, one of the most underrated science fiction movies. Different.
I saw that probably 25 years ago, and I remember liking it. Now that you say that, I think maybe you could say Mark Hamill, because even though I don't know if I was necessarily seeking them out, I saw The Guyver.
Yep.
I saw Slipstream. I remember seeing Slipstream and seeing the cover with Mark Hamill on it and going, I want to check this out.
Right.
So, Mark Hamill, I would say. And then last year, he did a show on the Comic-Con network where he basically goes and checks out people's collections and stuff. And you could tell from, and they talk about it too, he's a collector. He's a fanboy. He's not just, the guy who got the role, who knows nothing about anything. He knows a comic artist. He knows...
Did you ever see? He did an episode of Amazing Stories.
I watched Amazing Stories when it was on. I don't remember an awful lot of it.
He did one of the better ones where it was about this guy that a kid in the 30s, I want to say, and was collecting things throughout his life, and he was seeing like a leprechaun like gnome or something like that, who kept telling him, no, don't do that, do this, you're a dreamer, don't go to work, don't work for somebody.
Right.
And he just kept collecting everything, and finally, he's driving around in modern day Los Angeles with a broken down 1938 Auburn full of junk, and he finally just like flips out on the gnome, and while the car breaks down on the side of the highway, this woman comes to help him out, and he's trying to pay her with pennies out of a jug, and she sees the jug, and she's like, figures out it's some kind of collectible and wants to give him like $300 for it.
Right.
And then he realizes all the stuff that he's collected over the years is worth a ton of money.
Yeah, he's driving around with what he thinks is junk.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting story. It's definitely a fantasy because, the silly little gnome thing.
Well, that show was all...
Yeah.
Honestly, the only one I truly remember like really well. I think Kevin Costner was in it. It was the one with the guys on the World War II airplane, and they can't land because the landing gear won't come down. Did you ever see that one?
Probably, but
It basically, one of the guys is an artist, and he ends up, again, I don't remember the machinations of the story, but they're trying to get home after a bombing run. They can't. He draws a landing gear on a piece of paper and ends up making the landing gear, like Roger Rabbiting the landing gear.
Wow.
Yeah, and they get home safe because of it. That's the only one I really remember out of that whole series in terms of really well. I remember the opening of that series.
Oh yeah, it
with
was
the Native Americans sitting around the fire, and then all the little bits and pieces. But like in terms of episodes, it's like it's on Netflix. I think I should check it out again because Steven Spielberg.
Here you go, Star Wars fans.
There you go, amazing stories, 1985 to 1986 ish around there. Hey, this is all branching off of Star Wars. This is all branching off of Star Wars.
It really is. Well, you think about all the science fiction series that came out or movies because of Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And again, I mean, if it wasn't for Star Wars, the Star Trek second series, which they were working on, would never have been turned into Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Trek 2 is what they were going to call it, correct?
Phase 2.
Phase 2. Star Trek Phase 2. And if I remember correctly, the character, the Vulcan science officer who dies on the transporter pad was the actor, and the character was supposed to have been
in the series,
the replacement for Spock, because Nimoy was like, I'm done. Yeah.
I am not Spock.
I have been and forever shall be done with this shit.
Shit.
He just headbutted the mic.
Oh God, poor Leonard Nimoy. Never on Star Wars.
He never was on Star Wars. He didn't play any roles in Star Wars. Okay, so Star Wars. Now we're talking about the original movie, and obviously we had the two sequels.
Yeah. Now think like Kenny Baker.
Okay.
All right. In the movies that he had done.
We talked about this during Movie Buff, but he was in Time Bandits.
Time
correct?
Bandits was awesome.
Yeah. What else did he do?
Obviously, he's been in all those movies where they need a short person to be like, I don't know, a leprechaun. Anything in makeup. And
George Lucas has given many people with dwarfism or short people in Hollywood. Warwick Davis.
Yeah.
He played Wicket in the Ewok in the third movie, and he's done a role in every one since.
Yeah.
He also did Willow, and he also did he's the leprechaun.
Oh, the actual leprechaun.
He's the actual leprechaun.
Yep.
Which, if we want to talk about sequels,
what's that?
you had Leprechaun 2, Leprechaun 3, Leprechaun into Hood, Leprechaun in Space. I'm not fucking kidding when I say this.
I remember the space one.
Yeah, Leprechaun into Hood.
Really?
And not in the Hood, in the Hood.
1992.
Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna smoke a blunt with ya, and then kill ya with my own Uzi.
Terrible.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of Warwick Davis, from Return of the Jedi to Leprechaun 2 or Leprechaun 12 into Hood. Terrible.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I had a comic store out in the Chicago area, we were selling the Star Wars card game, the collectible card game.
Okay.
The early edition of it was based on just Star Wars. And all the characters that you saw sitting around, like the Imperial table where Vader comes in, you get names for every single one of them. And apparently, if they didn't find them, they found somebody to give them a name for those characters.
They got permission.
Yeah, they had to go into the scripts, or if not in the script, in the novels, and find a name for these characters.
Well, that was something Lucas did with the toys too.
Yeah,
the original 12 toys or whatever it was, was all C-3PO, R2-D2, Kenobi, all, major characters. But, once he started making money, he realized, that, hey, I can Snaggletooth, this guy. There was always a Hammerhead.
Yep.
These characters come on, you're like, they never said his name in the movie, but you got to have a name to have a toy.
Yep.
There were some characters that I was always amazed that didn't get, figures. Like, one of them in the first movie that I've always, why would you give a character like Snaggletooth, or even I'm trying to think of someone else that was in the
Walrus Man.
Walrus Man. Why would you give them a toy, but a character with dialogue? Tag. I think his name was Tag. He's the Imperial that your sorcery.
No, that guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
Like, why did that guy not get a figure? In all reality, why did
It's just a guy.
Grand Moff Tarkin didn't get a figure in the original series?
True, yeah.
You know, I mean, he's the villain
He's
of
an
the
old
movie.
man. What do you want an action figure of an old man for?
They're at a focus group and they're like, okay, kids, who do you want to play with? Do you want to play with Darth Vader? Yay! Do you want to play with Luke Skywalker? Yay! Do you want to play with geriatric space Nazi? No. But he's Peter Cushing. He rolls his R's. No, thank you.
And I imagine that his arm would be because those figures they didn't have.
No, they were straight
They
arms.
weren't articulated.
They were
so
straight arms.
He would have one arm bent so it would go up to his chin.
Yes.
You know, so, like there you go. See, it's right here in front of my muff.
He has been, man, I'm going to tell you, if Vinny was here today,
Oh, he'd kill me.
he would have killed you by now. You're lucky
That's
that
it. We're ready to go.
we're not recording. Yeah, I was just always amazed at the
ghost of
choices.
Vinny.
At the choices they made on some of the figures that they would not, do, and then no Grand Moff Tarkin, but we had a Gonk droid, the power droid. If you remember when you'd move him, he'd click.
Yeah, this is the only figure that I was ever given as a gift.
Really?
The Power Droid. I never got any of the other figures.
Really,
Yeah, I wasn't allowed.
like forbidden?
What do you want dolls for?
They're not dolls; they're action figures.
Right?
God, I'm starting to peel the layers away of what's wrong with you. I had the Darth Vader head case.
I didn't get any of that.
I had the Darth Vader head case. I'd pop that thing open and it had two sides, and I had Luke in his Bespin gear, and I had IG-88, and I had, what was that medical droid that had, do you remember the toy? It had like 30 little white arms that would pop out of it.
yeah,
that
I
was Return
remember
of the Jedi, or Empire Strikes Back, I believe. 2-1B with his, looked like a 1940s microphone for a mouth. Luke in the back to tank.
Nerd.
I am a nerd.
Just like Quick Kick.
Quick kick. Let's not start on that again. What's your favorite ship in the Star Wars universe?
The Y-Wing.
There's no hesitation. You call me a nerd, there's no hesitation. You've actually been waiting for someone your whole life to ask you that.
I got one right over there.
Do you have a Y-Wing over there? Oh, why? Well, let's talk about that. Why do you have a Y-Wing over there, John?
I have some of the ships in the X-Wing game.
Which you had told me when we talked about it at one point. I think you said it was a money suck.
It is.
And you said it was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And you went to GaryCon, as we talked about in the first episode of Pino Comics. And what happened?
I played a game of it.
And you got what?
I bought a lot of it.
You got addicted.
I did. It's a really
You
good
got
game.
addicted. I'd like to play this game. I'm looking forward to it at some point.
It's a really good game. Sadly, I bought right into it.
Yeah.
I knew I would. I knew it. It's the problem with the games like that, because I love the ships. I always have. All the ships in any of these movies, TV shows, or whatever. The ships are they really drive it for me.
Yeah.
And in particularly in the Star Wars universe, where the ships are used and abused and clunky in some cases, they all make sense to a certain degree. The Millennium Falcon has never made sense to me, but I guess that's part of its charm. You know,
Well, what do you
why
mean?
your driver's seat is way the hell over on the
Oh,
left.
yeah. No, it's a weird design.
It's a completely weird design.
It's a weird. I read somewhere that it was he designed it. He put a quarter down and just traced the circle and then added the forks in the front, and then that's
Macquarie.
Macquarie or Lucas.
That would be Ralph Macquarie.
Ralph Macquarie, the production designer of the Star Wars films,
Yes.
who's done a lot of cool things throughout his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that somewhere. Don't take that on authority, because I could have read that wrong. But
Well, considering some of the shapes of those ships and rovers and things of that nature, I mean, a lot of them are just bricks.
yeah.
Bricks with wheels.
So do you not, even though you don't care for the movies as much, did you not like the ships in the prequels because because really they
No.
did do a good job of showing how the prequels, everything's shiny and bright.
And I did like that. I mean, the ships from Naboo, particularly the
the Starfighters, the yellow ones?
no, not those. The Queen ship and
Oh, okay, yeah, the
I-
transports.
I guess I don't know what they would be from the ruling class,
Right.
You know, those really shiny because they were gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're awesome looking too. Very very narrow and I don't know aerodynamic, but jet like.
Yeah.
You know, and that was kind of cool. Those fighters they had were. I don't know what the hell those things were, but
In the prequels, I particularly like Darth Maul's ship because it was a predecessor to a TIE fighter.
yeah,
But it kind of looked almost like it had like a long kind of like a Star Destroyer's front.
yeah.
but obviously much smaller.
I liked the very first ship you see land in the Trade Federation. The Trade Federation ship. The Jedi's craft there. He comes in and lands very cool. I just like the way the feet came down. I like the design of it. It was pretty neat looking, and it looked like another ship of that. Someone else's design that had done some of the other ships that you were familiar with. And then I liked Obi-Wan's fighter craft.
I liked Obi-Wan's fighter craft, and I also like the fact that in the prequels, and it's a nod to the technology being, I guess lesser at that point than it would have been 30 years later when we see Star Wars, that they had to use those rings to hyper jump. Yep. They can't just hyper jump. They have to actually use the ring and then leave it where they are and then get back to it to get back to where they have to go.
That's pretty cool.
I thought that was pretty cool.
The Trade Federation.
What was Newt Gunray?
The Jedi are coming.
Did you? Oh. Someone pointed out recently. I don't know where I saw this, but somebody had pointed out recently that the Jedi had to use rebreathing devices to get to the Gungan city to swim. But when the poisonous gas comes out on the Trade Federation ship, they just hold their breath. Right? They can hold their breath indefinitely to not get knocked out by gas. But when they swim, they have to use scuba gear. I'll tell you what I did like about the prequels, and I did like a few things about Phantom Menace. I liked the it's all Star Wars. I liked Qui-Gon. I liked Obi-Wan. I really like Ewan McGregor a lot. I liked the fact for the first time ever, after seeing nothing but Luke, who wasn't even really a Jedi, we got to see
real
Jedi in action, like how they can move at super speed. Yeah. And how they use the lightsabers to do different things, like to cut the door open and stuff like that. That was cool.
Well, Qui-Gon was pretty good. And then, of course, it's Liam Neeson, so that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, Liam Neeson's cool.
So what were your favorite ships there, Johnny boy?
I think we know that from the way I got so excited during The Force Awakens. The Millennium Falcon is for me an all-time favorite.
Force Awakened.
Yeah, it really, when they showed it, I just about bleeped in my bleep.
Wow.
I really do like the Falcon, but again, that was part of my my growing up with Han Solo. I was never an X-Wing guy as a kid. I had one, but I didn't think the X-Wings were cool. I think the X-Wings are wicked cool now as I've gotten older.
They were always pretty cool, but I like the Y-Wing. It's just...
The Y-Wing is the big nacelles in the back.
You want to see one?
I know what the Y-Wing is. The A-Wing is the small fast fighter. Yeah. The B-Wing is the gyroscope,
which is usually I would say the B-Wing is my favorite ship ever in the series, but I've always liked the Y-Wing. B-Wing is my second favorite, I think. The B-Wing is the most ridiculous ship in a fighter craft.
It is. They did a great episode of Rebels where they show you how the B-Wing came about. Yeah. And another thing about the B-Wing that you just made me think about it is on that documentary I watched about the history of Star Wars toys, they went to different people, huge Star Wars collectors, and this one guy, I think he lived in California, he's got a house full of Star Wars stuff. But the one thing that he mainly collects, and it's not all he collects, but it's his focus, is B-Wing and B-Wing pilot stuff, which there isn't a lot of. I think they said there was maybe 3 B-Wing pilots made throughout the course of any of the series, 2 actual fighters made. He owns everything, but the first thing he ever was given as a gift was a B-Wing pilot. So anywhere he goes that he finds a B-Wing pilot, he hunts them down. He had an entire case just filled with B-Wing, and the B-Wing pilot is just a generic guy in a red jumpsuit with a silver or a white helmet.
Yeah, he's got a different style helmet than
the X-Wings, and a different jumpsuit than the X-Wings. Yeah. But I thought that was funny and he said, he goes, and I know it's weird, but he said that's what got me into it, and he goes, so wherever I go, if I find a B-Wing or if I find a collection and a guy has a B-Wing, I'll buy the collection just to get the B-Wing pilot.
We're all dorks.
Yeah, big time dorks. I don't know. I'd have to say if I had to pick a ship going through the entirety of the of all the movies, it definitely isn't the Bespin City twin car. It's not that. That's just fucking ridiculously stupid. It looks like 2 shoes glued together. It looks like 2 fucking shoes glued together.
Oh God!
I've always liked Slave One, but I'm a Boba Fett guy.
Boba Fett,
where? I am one of those guys that I absolutely love a character that only has.
Good to be dead.
Yeah, well then in the special editions they overdubbed it with the Temp Tamura Morrison's voice, He's no good to me, Dad. 'Cause he's like New Zealand. He's no good to me, Dad. Which I prefer the Jeremy Bulloch or whoever voiced. No, the gentleman who voiced him passed away last year. He was like 92 years old.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
Can't remember his name, but yeah. He's no good to me, Dad. I always like Slave One.
It's a weird looking ship.
It is the design of the ship. It makes no sense.
No, you get to see it in action at least in what was it, the second
Empire.
movie?
Empire when he
No, in the prequels.
Attack of the Clones. Yeah.
Was it? You get a little bit more in action,
Yeah.
and it's definitely in better shape at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Boba Fett
It's
didn't.
no longer Jango Fett.
Yeah. Jango Fett was a much shinier version of Boba Fett, but see what happened? He got his fucking head cut off. By Samuel motherfucking Jackson. I told you, Boba, or Django, I'd cut your fucking head off.
Okay, so not Slave One.
Not Slave One. Geez, that's a tough one. You know, I'm going to say, because they're just so cool looking, Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
Star Destroyers, particularly the Executioner, Vader's Super Star Destroyer, which is...
Super Star Destroyer.
Which is... you do a good Admiral Akbar. You do. I do a good General Radis from Rogue One. Get the Hammerhead Corvettes. I have an idea. Get the Hammerhead Corvettes. He's sitting on that chair over like that glass cockpit. He's just looking down. He's like, this is. Well, of course you got the one that. It's a trap. It's a trap. So yeah, I would probably say Super Star Destroyer, the Executioner, Vader's flagship. I think that's pretty cool.
Not the. What is that? The Leia ship in the beginning.
Tantive 4?
It's the Renegade blocker.
Rebel blocker, Blockade Runner.
Blockade Runner.
Nah, not really.
No, you didn't like it looks just like Leia.
Yeah, it's got the. Yeah, you're right. I never thought about
Big
that.
donuts.
Yeah, and you know the other design aspect that just I never thought was very cool was the Stormtroopers, despite being the worst shots in the galaxy and the lamest, kind of the lamest like henchmen characters in the world. At least they looked cool.
They did.
The rebel soldiers with those white ping helmets and those they basically I never thought about that.
They'll have
They wear Han Solo's vest.
Yeah.
That's almost like a revelatory moment, much like in Family Guy when they like tell you, and it's true at the end of Empire that Billy D. Williams there, Lando Calrissian is wearing his clothes.
Why is he wearing his
like
clothes?
in the you ever see the Family Guy episode?
Yeah.
Where and Brian's like, well, hold on one second. Did anybody notice this? Why are you wearing Han's exact clothes?
It is a little weird.
It is weird. It's like, we get it. You left. I guess it's realistic. They left Bespin in a hurry. He couldn't pack. He didn't even bring Lobot. No. Lobot is currently being disassembled by a bunch of Huguenots. They're ripping him apart, and he's just like silently screaming. Ow. 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 But he couldn't pack another purple cape suit, so he's like, I'll help you out, Chewie, on Tatooine, but where's Han's clothes?
I need a smooth looking vest.
White shirt. Carillion blood stripes on my pants.
And yet we still haven't. Yeah, never mind.
We still have what?
We haven't gotten him mentioned anywhere in any of these new movies coming out.
No. Well, no, he's going to be in the Han Solo movie.
But we're not even getting how.
I don't know how, but they.
Well, I mean, it's going to be Billy D.
No.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So then I don't care.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes you get he gets the short end of the stick. I think one of the greatest moments of short end of the stick for Lando, and I don't know if it was racial or what, but a couple years ago at one of your parties at Havel House, it was your Memorial Day party, maybe the last year you lived there. Chris Tino came, and Chris. I talk to Chris once in a while. He's a big Star Wars fan. Yeah. And he's wearing an Empire Strikes Back T-shirt, and it's like a light blue T-shirt, and it's not the poster, but it's got like iconic moments. It's got like a walker on it. It's got Han dipping Leia, and it's got Luke, and it's got Huguenots on it. It's got Bespin Cloud Car on it, and the only thing that's not on this thing is Lando Calrissian.
Right.
Yeah. And even he said, what's wrong with my shirt? And I'm like, he goes, there's no fucking Lando on it. He's like, they've got like Bosk on it, but there's no Lando on it. IG-88 is on, yeah. IG-88 is on. I love that scene with Bosk where like the Imperial, like the guys are looking up at him. He's just like, my word.
Bosk, who looks like a retread of the lizard man from Star Trek.
Yes, yeah.
Boy, I can't even remember the name of that thing.
The Gorn.
The Gorn, yeah.
Yeah. I also love and I also love and this is something they've continued, which I think is really cool. Like in Rebels and stuff, is how they filmed Star Wars and Empire, a lot of them in England, Pinewood Studios, all that stuff. So obviously they use a lot of English actors. On the Rebel side, you don't hear it so much, but all of the Imperial officers
English.
are all English. And I love that when you watch Rebels, they still have most of the characters they use have the accent.
Yeah.
Like it's like maybe it's not supposed to be English, obviously, because they're not. But it's almost like a higher crust type thing.
I back when I was reading the Star Wars Insider magazine, and they were trying to find all the old fighter pilots from the original 3 movies.
Right.
And they had found the living pilots from the original movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So they found all those guys, and they spoke to them, and they had some great little interviews with all of them, and some were a little less enthused about Star Wars than others.
Yeah.
But when it got to Empire, so the guy who's flying around in the snowspeeder trying to find Luke and Han, and Rogue 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Says, Rogue 2, I've found them.
No, they never show him, right?
I've found them.
You just hear the voice.
No, they show him.
Oh, do they show
They show him. And the guy that played him, and I don't remember his name, honestly, but he ended up being in a number of series in England. He's English. When they interviewed him for the Star Wars Insider magazine, he said, he's like, I did all the lines, but I did them in my own accent. If I knew that they were going to dub me into an American-style accent, I do an American-style accent. I could have easily done it in my own voice.
Right.
He was a little annoyed by that, I
Yeah.
guess. And I know, other actors, well, the guy that played Vader, obviously, was very pissed off about being dubbed, so...
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Oh, yeah, he did all the lines.
Well, I figured he did the lines for acting purposes, but I thought he thought
He thought it was gonna be him.
Oh,
Yeah,
David Prowse.
he's kind of a bitter old man.
Really? Yeah. He's I mean, obviously you know it from Star Wars. He's a huge dude.
He's huge.
He was in Clockwork Orange. In Clockwork Orange, the victim of Alex's horrifying shit that he pulls at the end when Alex ends up back at the house. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but when he ends up back in the house,
many times.
the gentleman is paralyzed and he has this big houseboy who carries him around. That's
Yep.
David Prowse.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
He's a big guy.
Yeah,
so.
big muscular,
Yep.
dude. But I never realized that he was under the impression that he would be the actual voice for Vader.
Yeah, I guess that was. I don't know if it was in the contract or whatever, but he got really bent about not being the voice, and he got real bent about something else recently too. And I think it had something to do with ancillary characters making money off of being in Star Wars recently.
What, like doing appearances and stuff, or
yeah, the guy that played Snaggletooth or something. He's like, who the hell is this guy? Who cares?
Well, one of the first years ago when I first started going to Comic Cons kind of seriously, it was the second year that I went to what is now Terrificon, and it was in Stanford, and I went with my buddy Lou, and they had the guy there who was, and he had the big poster with his name on it, but of course because nobody knows his name. On everything that they had for him, it had to explain that he was one of the rebels in the, I believe the Walker fight scene. Like he's one of the rebels, shooting at the Walkers or something. Bill Johnson, Rebel number 7 in Empire Strikes Back, and you know what? I'm wrong. I'll tell you who he was. I was wrong about that. He is the stormtrooper who Ben Kenobi uses the Force on to trick. He's the wrong droid stormtrooper.
Yeah.
And that's what it says. Whatever his name is, and wrong droid stormtrooper. And take a picture with, whatever, wrong droid stormtrooper.
He's on the droid you're looking for.
These are the droids. These are the droids we're looking for. Sir, droids.
Oh, I hate that scene so much.
What is happening
that.
to 3PO that he's losing fucking gaskets and washers like
Not
that?
just that, but the guy holds the thing up in front of the camera for a good 5 to 10 seconds, holding it like droids.
It's a droid's piss ring.
I wish this thing was being filmed right now because...
Sir, droids.
Here, I'll hold the pause just as long as he did. It's just so annoying.
And you know what? Somewhere that guy is at a con right now, and there's a picture of him holding up a gasket.
Me.
That's me. I'm the droids guy.
Yeah, it just makes me think of Spaceballs. Comb the desert.
What have you found? Nothing. What have you found? Nothing. What have you found? Man, we ain't found shit. You know, in all
Spaceballs.
honesty, if you're a Star Wars fan and you're not a Spaceballs fan, you're really missing out.
I have a problem with that too. It's just that anyone that can't make fun of themselves, you're not a real fan.
Yeah,
you
Spaceballs.
need to get over it.
Spaceballs did it right.
I had some problems with some Star Trek fans one year about that.
Over what was being made fun of?
Yeah. We were in line at a terrible convention in Chicago, my friends and I, and we were just making fun of Shatner and the way he would fight. And we
Kirk roll?
Well, we call it the Pearl Harbor. Kirk would put his two fists together and hit you in the back with them. Pearl Harbor.
That's a double axe handle. It's a wrestling move.
Yeah, basically. And we're doing this while we're standing in line because we got like 300 or 400 people in front of us while we go to this stupid convention. And people complained, so security came over and spoke to us
For having an opinion?
for enjoying ourselves.
I was going to say, was this Nazi Germany? You were...
Well, it was all. You should have seen this guy. Guy who comes waddling up to us. He's in an original series medical uniform, and he comes up and he goes,
We're getting complaints from people that you're being too exuberant.
and I'm like, really?
Oh, fuck people.
And then more people came over. I'm like, what is this? And they're all dressed in their little Star Trek costumes. I'm like, okay, so people just don't know how to have a good time.
Your attitude is why your penis has never been used.
Yeah, I got. That was my last Star Trek convention
Yeah.
ever. We'll never go to another one. That really irritated the hell.
I've met a few fans in my time that are way too into something and can't make fun of it or can't just it's humor. Whether someone else, you were obviously waiting in line, so you obviously love Star Trek.
Yep,
You're obviously
so.
there. You're obviously there for a reason.
It was a terrible show too. I went to one here in Connecticut that was 100 times better than that one. What does that tell you?
Yeah, really. Well, Chicago should be. Yeah,
Should be 3 or 4 times as big and,
Yes.
and a hell of a lot better, but it wasn't. Creation conventions, those things when they were still around, cookie cutter cons.
So how did those people like? I don't know if it was around the same time or if it was probably before. How did they feel when William Shatner went on Saturday Night Live and told them to go kiss a girl?
And this was a long time after that
Yeah.
too. So I don't know.
You, how old are you?
Right. Yeah, and the people that came over to us too, and were really trying to push us out of line. I'm like, I'm not leaving, no way. And then we started impersonating Shatner. What is the problem?
Oh my God!
And I don't think a lot of them got it. It was kind of funny. It was like, what is the problem here?
Yeah, there's too many.
They're just so.
There's too many people that are too steeped into their own fandom.
Yeah.
Too many people that are too steeped into their own fandom.
Hey, you Star Wars fans, let me tell you one thing. You guys are the ones that killed the damn the science fiction movies of all time. I mean, you killed the medium for me.
Well, but the thing with Star Wars is it's not even science fiction.
Well, that's the thing.
Star Wars is a fantasy movie.
But that's what happened. Hollywood thinks that that's a science fiction movie,
Right.
And then because every science fiction movie after that couldn't compare, they don't make any more.
Right.
Until we got Interstellar.
Interstellar is a great movie. We talk about Interstellar a lot.
Or what was the other one the one that Sandra Bullock did?
Oh, Gravity.
Because that made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's hard science though.
Yeah, that's
You're really it's not science fiction as such. It's more those are more science fiction as opposed to sci-fi.
right.
If you want to get into that kind of split of which one is which, sci-fi being much more story based as opposed to the hard science of it.
Right. If you ever want to see a really good pure, I mean, it's on Netflix too, and it is as probably as science fiction as you can get. There's a movie called Primer. Have you ever heard of Primer?
I have heard of it. Yeah.
It is a time travel movie. It is probably, in terms of what I've ever seen, the hardest science fiction movie ever because it takes place in today's day and age. There's no special effects. There's no bells and whistles. It just follows the idea of this time traveling loop these people get caught in. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's short. Watch it.
Okay.
Because when you're done watching it, you'll go, wow, that was a science fiction movie. That took a science fiction premise, time travel, and applied it to what would really happen if you started using it.
Yeah.
It's so. I've seen it twice. I've watched it 2 times. It's so good.
Have you seen Moon?
I have.
And that's a good one
have.
too. I would say that's less hard science than it is science fiction.
It's science fiction, but it's
I
something
mean,
you could believe in.
And here again, you're splitting hairs, but
yeah.
Moon
Moon is something that you can go. I could see that happening if we had that technology.
Yeah.
I won't give that away, but that's
Right.
that was directed by David Bowie's son.
Really?
Yeah, Duncan Jones, and it's starring what's his name? I love him, Sam Rockwell,
Yeah. Pretty much only him, if I remember correctly.
and Kevin Spacey as the voice of his robot companion.
and then there's a contact that he talks to.
Like once or
eventually,
twice, yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah. That is such a good movie.
It is. It's very good. And I mean, it did actually make it to the theater. But
I didn't see it in the theater. I saw
I
it as
didn't
soon as
either.
it came out on DVD.
Yeah, it basically hit the art house theaters
Yes.
and then bang, it was gone. So,
Yeah.
which is too bad, but
Well, it's too bad when you live in Connecticut. Because
Yeah.
we don't have any of those theaters. And
hardly.
Yeah.
Not anymore anyway. I don't even know if the Cine Studios are open.
There's one in New Haven called Bowtie Cinemas.
Yep.
And they will do stuff like that, but you got to go to New Haven. All right. So, you may listen to this show and you may go, Self, they didn't talk extremely about Star Wars only. They talked about Battlestar Galactica. They talked about Buck Rogers. They talked about a whole ton of things. But that is what makes this show about Star Wars, is as we talked, influenced so many different things that we have these other things because of Star Wars.
Oh, definitely, and
So-
including, I would say, long involved franchises.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean
any-
trilogies. I mean, think
Anything
about
that's
it.
got sequels of that nature.
It's not just sequels of that nature.
Look
but,
at Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for Return of the Jedi and Empire being filmed back to back,
Right.
and then being successful, I doubt that they would have done that with Back to the Future.
Yeah, and that was God, Back to the Future. I love that. I love that trilogy so much. I in the end, if I had to pick between Star Wars and Back to
Mr.
the Future,
Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood.
Or Irish accent.
Mr. Eastwood.
Hey, Leah Thompson was hot. Leave her alone. All right,
Yeah.
Let's not make fun of Leah Thompson. She
No.
was one of my childhood crushes. What, yours too?
Oh yeah.
Oh God, she was so cute.
Yeah, and
She
then-
wasn't.
Then she did Howard the Duck, and it was all over.
Yeah, that pretty much ended it. She, and I give her credit too because I saw her on something recently, and
Really?
I think it said I looked her up on IMDb. She's like 58. She's still very cute.
I haven't seen her. In
Yeah,
years.
no, she is not. I'm trying to think of someone that like completely went off the rails. She hasn't done that. She hasn't done that.
Who the hell? Off the rails.
You know what I mean? Like I was almost gonna say Margot Kidder, but Margot Kidder was never good looking. Margot Kidder just went from like a normal looking woman to a bag of trash blowing around on the highway. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm just being mean.
A bag of chili.
A garbage bag filled with chili. So that was our Star Wars episode. We talked about ships. We talked about
Fabulous
characters.
moolah.
We talked about the fabulous moolah, who does look like, or who did look like a garbage bag filled with chili.
Oh.
And I will say this, we
sorry.
didn't talk much about it because we were kind of we tangent all over the place.
Never.
But we didn't get
Never
too far into
happens.
the movies. I will say, Empire's my favorite. Will always be my favorite.
Empire is a very good story.
Empire needs Star Wars to be as good as it is, but
Well, yeah.
obviously, but when you get right to it, directing, writing, the performances, they're all a little bit better in that movie.
Okay.
You don't think so?
I'm just accepting your point
Yeah.
of view. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, performances. I mean, of course, with Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. I mean, they're both very young. Carrie Fisher's first big movie, and of course, you're going to get a little bit better after whatever they went through, plus whatever acting they did after. Well, maybe not the Star Wars holiday special, but
Life Day with the Chewbacca family. What was Chewbacca's kid's name? Fluffy or Wormy? Stink Biscuit?
it was something dumb. I remember that.
Yeah.
Life Day.
It's featuring B. Arthur. I've seen a lot of things.
Terrific, isn't it?
I've never seen that.
Really?
No, that's what I was going to say. I've seen
on YouTube.
I've seen the Roger Corman Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I've seen several other things that shouldn't be seen.
Oh,
I've
just
never seen the Star Wars Holiday
See
Special.
it.
I don't know if I want to.
It's terrifying. Well, at least see it for. You must have seen the cartoon.
The animated debut of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Nope. Never seen any of it.
You have to see that because it's all their voices.
Yeah.
But what's really hysterical is the way that Han Solo's lines are delivered.
Yeah.
Because it sounds almost as if they phoned up Harrison Ford and said, "Okay, read this over the phone."
They probably did.
Because he's just so bored with the whole thing.
Yeah, they probably did. Harrison Ford has even like back then when he was relying on this stuff for money, he's never pretended to be interested in any of it. There was
Very true,
I
yeah.
don't know if we mentioned this on a show or if I was talking to somebody else about it, but they were doing the Star Wars anniversary or what do you call it, the Orlando celebration thing a couple weeks ago.
Orlando Jones.
Orlando Jones from Mad TV. No, they were in Orlando doing that Star Wars celebration, and they asked Harrison Ford. They said there was some interviewing him, and it was him, and I think George Lucas was there because they bring him as a guest of honor. So how do you feel about the Han Solo movie coming out next year? You know, you looking forward to seeing it? And he goes, not really. Like, he doesn't care.
Doesn't care.
He just doesn't care. He honestly, all he wants to do
He tells
is
some kid, like all the kids are being hired to do this, possibly hired to play Han Solo. He was like, "Don't do it, kids. Don't do it. Don't get involved."
God, he really does seem like such a grumpy bastard.
Yeah,
But he's being
fall
honest.
out of the sky like 4 or 5 times. I mean,
Yeah.
you get a leg
Yeah,
too.
I was gonna say he can't watch the movie because he'll be busy crash landing on a golf course somewhere. Oh damn it! Damn it! These instruments are all screwy again. Oh, I'm gonna land in an Arby's.
He must have been so pissed when he broke his leg during
Yeah.
filming that.
He figured he was in for like that role probably took like 3 weeks to film
Right.
because there really wasn't a lot. And then he ends up breaking his leg, and it's like, well, you know, the only problem is now is you're gonna have to hang out with us for another 6 months. And he's just like, this is getting worse all the time.
I want to raise.
I want to raise JJ.
Star Wars is okay. Star Trek is better.
Star Trek is better. I'll tell you what.
What do I do for the so-called May the 4th be with you garbage? What do I do every year?
What do you do?
I'll always post something up that's Star Trek oriented.
That's Star Trek oriented.
Because you know what? Shut the hell up.
Hey, you know, one thing I did realize that
Get over it.
the May the 4th thing did make me realize that I haven't thought about or I haven't seen the original trilogy in a long time. So, and especially the first movie. So maybe in the next couple weeks I'll watch at least the first movie.
The original or the remaster?
Oh, I don't watch the remastered ones. No.
You don't want to watch those?
No.
No. With the great scene.
I
of
actually
Jabba the Hutt.
even where he steps on the tail.
Yeah.
I-
Did you ever see that scene with the guy that was playing
the
Jabba?
big fat guy
Yeah.
in the he looks like he's wearing Fred Flintstone's
Yeah,
clothes.
kinda, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And then my favorite part of the remastered version, because of course, when you have a character like Boba Fett and he doesn't appear in Star Wars, is how when they're walking through
Yeah.
and Jabba's got all the bounty hunters
Yep.
with him, the very last one you see is Boba Fett, and he looks into the camera,
Yeah.
like yes, I was here, or yeah, I was here, whatever accent they wanted to use in it.
At least they put some more Biggs back in there. At least now it makes more sense when he dies.
Yes, yeah. When Luke gets all upset over some random guy, he
Like,
certainly didn't
what?
care when Porkins died.
No. Poor Porkins.
Yeah, Porkins. Well, we'll leave it on that note.
Poor Porkins.
Porkins also didn't get a figure, but that's because they didn't have enough plastic in the Kenner factory. So with that,
Top men.
I will say this has been Pint of Comics. I'm John,
I'm John.
and happy Star Wars 40th anniversary
To some of you.
to some of you. I think a lot of you that might be Star Wars fans are going to unsubscribe to the show after this and go, "Those guys didn't really like that movie at all." See ya.
See ya.